Good morning, everyone. This is Mandy Fierbacher live from the Argo Visa channel. Thank you so much for joining me today for this live Q&A about the visa interview process. This is an interesting time for US visa processing because we're sort of past the pandemic, but not really. There's still a lot of things kind of left over from the mess that the pandemic made on consular processing and visa processing in general. So, if you're someone who has been waiting for a long time for an appointment, we do expect that things will get better. However, there is still a lot of holdover from what happened during the pandemic, the longer interviews, the difficulty getting the visa appointments, difficulty getting an expedite once you've been denied a visa. All of those things are still true. There is still quite a large backlog if you're waiting for your immigrant visa appointment. And I know that this is something that the US government and the State Department is working on actively to do better and to lower wait times. I know this is a big priority. Today, hopefully we can shed a little bit of light on your Q&A session, on your questions about your upcoming visa interview, and hopefully how we can help. What I'm going to try to do in this live session is answer as many general questions as I can, because that's going to be more applicable to everybody tuning in, more helpful to everyone who's looking at the visa interview process. And if we run out of those, I'll go ahead and do some of the more specific questions. So let's take a look. Oh, I see there's a lot of people who have joined us. Welcome, everyone. Sorry for the few minutes delay. Thank you for waiting for this session. Hopefully it'll be helpful to you. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking at some of the questions. What does the stars mean on the visa? The stars are actually irrelevant to whether or not your visa will be approved. It does not have any bearing on whether or not you're going to get approved or denied. Okay, so Danny Rachi, thank you for tuning in, asked, hello, I'm applying for an F1 visa in Congo, in Kinshasa, and I don't know how I should address the ties to my home country. That is a great question. So I think that the best way to demonstrate your ties to your home country is always sort of a show, not tell idea. And what I mean by that is you never want to go to the officer and say, here are my home ties, one, two, three, and five, three, four, and five, and list them out. It's usually not very effective. These officers don't really like to be told exactly what to think and how to make a decision on your case. The best way to do it is to show them by describing your situation and your life in Kinshasa in a way that will help the visa officer understand that you have a lot going for you in your home country. You have every reason to return. So, the best way to do that is basically to highlight all the strengths in your case. If you're someone who's applying for an F1 visa because you have gotten a scholarship to a top school in the United States, that is a very big, strong point in your case and something that you should definitely mention right away. So that's one example. If you are actually someone who is married and your wife and kids will not be coming with you when you study, that could be something else that's considered a strong tie. If you are already working for a company and they're holding your job until you get back with your degree, that is another strong tie. So these are just some examples, and you want to use things that are truthful, that are honest and authentic to who you are, and you want to bring them up to the attention of the visa officer. And that is the best way to demonstrate home ties, finding out what the strengths in your case are and putting them right at the beginning of your interview. So thank you for asking that question, Danny. Okay, so Eli asked, I'm supposed to start classes on January 17th, 2023. However, my interview date is 5 days before the start date. Yes, this is a great question, and it will definitely affect whether or not your visa gets approved. So, a little known rule is that if you are applying to study in the United States, the visa officer is actually not allowed to approve your visa if they think that you won't make it to your program start date on time. So, this means that if you are really strapped for time and your interview is 5 days before the visa interview, this is something that you want to bring up to the visa officer right away. It's possible if they're willing to help you out, they can have your visa printed on the same day. There's no guarantee of that happening, but I've seen that happen a lot of times. So this is why you want to let them know. You don't want to just go through the process and not tell them, like, hey, my school program starts in 5 days, right? Because then you're not going to make it. And then not only will you have problems getting your visa approved, even if you get your visa approved, you might have problems at the border when you're trying to enter the country, and CBP might say, hey, your program started like a week ago. What are you doing here? No, we're going to have to turn you around. You're going to have to go back to your home country. So this is something that you really have to be responsible for and take the initiative on. So always try to find a visa appointment that's at least a week out. If you can't find one that's a week out, then book the appointment anyways and request an expedite and explain that, hey, my program starts on this date. So I need to have a visa appointment at least a week before. Sometimes, even having an appointment that's 5 days out, like Eli, or 4 days out, it's still possible to get your visa approved and make it on time. But what you want to do is just make sure that you bring that up to the visa officer, ask if they can print your visa the same day. And as soon as your visa is approved, book your flights and get on that plane. Because time is really of the essence, and it's very important that you do this. If the visa officer thinks, like, hey, there's no way you're going to make it, I can't print your visa same day, then it's possible that you might have to defer your visa to a later semester. So this is something that you can talk about with your DSO and your school advisor. But the long story short is that you basically have to make sure that you get your visa approved with plenty of time for you to travel to the United States to attend your program. Okay, so TM asked, I'm from Iran and I have done my F1 visa interview at the end of November in Dubai. They put my case in administrative processing. How long will this take? And will the process be faster because it's closer to the end of the semester? So, TM, this is a great question. So, for any of you that is in administrative processing, it can take on many forms, right? So, the visa officer is never going to tell you what type of administrative processing that you have. The only way you can find out is by talking to an expert, such as one of our ex visa officers at Argo. And once we hear about what questions you were asked, what you were asked to submit, and how they describe to you the administrative processing, we can give you a fairly good idea of what type of administrative processing it is. Some are fairly quick, it takes like a couple of days. Others can take months, weeks, or even months. So it's a good idea to book a session so that you know what type of administrative processing you're in and how you can get that case moving along, and if anything can be done. A lot of times with administrative processing, things can actually be done to move the case forward. So this is really important. And so you don't want to just sit around and be like, well, I don't know what type of administrative processing. I'm just going to wait for them to finish. Best to take a proactive approach because you're the person who cares most about your visa approved. So you really want to find out what type of administrative processing and what can be done to sort of shake the case loose and get it moving again. So TM, my best recommendation for you is to book, a 30-minute consultation with an ex visa officer, understand what type of administrative processing you're doing. And we actually have a former consular officer who worked with all Iranian applicants when he was working at the US Embassy in Ankara, Turkey. So he would be a great person to consult with, and he speaks fluent Farsi. So that's what I would recommend for you. So best of luck to you, TM. Okay, so Kola Wole asked, I want to know what I need to do. I applied for my F1 visa and my wife's and children's F2 at the same time. When the VO asks for my I-20 and passport, will I give him and her my own alone or all of us? If you're applying at the same time with them and interviewing at the same time, you can definitely provide them with all of the passports and all of the DS-160 confirmation pages. And I think another good question that is a follow up to this question is if you're applying for your F1 visa, should you apply on your own or should you apply, with your spouse and with your children together? So that is a great question. What I usually recommend, so you can do it either way, and generally there shouldn't be too much an effect of whether or not you get approved or not. However, what I recommend to clients is for the F1 to apply for the visa first. Be very honest during the interview about whether or not, family members are joining you for, the time that you're going to be spending studying in the United States. And then, once you get approved, which hopefully you will get approved, then have your wife and kids apply at a later time. And the reason why I recommend this is because it's just an easier way to save money. If the F1 doesn't get approved for his or her visa, there's no way the F2 visas will be approved. And so if you're applying for everybody at the same time, while it is, more streamlined and you're doing it together, if you get denied, that's 4 visa denial fees versus just 1. So that is why I recommend applying as an F1 first. Okay. So hopefully that helps some of you if you wonder, oh, should I apply on my own? Should I apply with my family? Apply on your own first, but be honest during the interview about your family. And then if you get approved, have your family apply soon after, right? That's, I think, the best strategy. Okay, so Nishal asked, hello from Nepal. I was refused 6 months ago, and my second interview is coming up for which I've been practicing. Can you give me some important things to keep in mind this time? Okay, so Nishal, the first thing that you need to do if you've been previously denied a visa is to find out exactly why your visa was denied in the first place. How do you do that? By booking a consultation with a former visa officer. Now, when a visa officer denies your visa, they're never going to tell you why you're denied. They just don't. They can, but they won't because then it would be a longer interview. They need to take time explaining to you. You're likely going to argue with her or him about why they're wrong. And visa officers don't like to go through that. So that is why they take a sheet of paper and they say, hey, your visa has been denied. Good luck. You can always apply again. Okay. So the only way you can find out why your visa was denied is by booking a consultation with an ex visa officer and telling them exactly what questions you were asked, what your answers were, what the actions of the visa officer were after that. And then we can tell you with almost, I don't know, like 99% certainty. Okay, maybe that's high, but a very close certainty of exactly why your visa was denied because we used to be these people making these decisions and we know exactly why we deny visas to people. And so once you have an idea of why you're denied, then the next time you go into your visa interview, we can give you a strategy. Okay, how can you overcome that previous denial? How can you really zone in and focus in on the reason why you were denied to convince the visa officer that that situation has changed? Okay, that's super important. So if any of you are listening and you've been denied a visa before, do not go in for another interview without knowing exactly how to prepare and working with an expert because most likely you will get denied again if you do exactly the same things and you don't know why you were denied in the first place. And that is a waste of your time. It is a waste of your money. There's just no point in going back in and doing exactly the same things over and over again. And I know a lot of, visa applicants who do this because they never had a resource like us. They didn't know that there was a company out there of ex visa officers who can tell them why they were denied. So this is so, so, so important. Everybody needs to do expert visa interview preparation before their US visa interview because the stakes are so high. According to the State Department statistics, about 1 in 4 visa applicants get denied or have administrative processing delays. That number actually gets larger when you're looking at F1 students. So if you're an F1 student, about 1 in 3 students will get denied or have administrative processing delays, and then probably a denial after that. So everybody, I repeat, everybody should be doing expert visa interview preparation before their very first interview so that they know exactly what to expect and how to handle their visa interview. Because guess what? That is an investment in you. That is an investment in yourself and your studies in the United States so that you don't have to be on the defensive, and while all of your friends have gone off to study and, start their programs, you're the one that has had a visa denial. And now you're trying to figure out what to do next and, why you were denied and what you can do. And Once you get denied a visa, that leaves a permanent mark on your visa record in the government systems forever. So, such high risk process, not worth it to try it on your own. I know some of you guys are like, oh, Argo is kind of expensive. I don't know if I could do it. Consider it an investment in your future and in yourself because you don't want any problems on your visa record. You don't want there to be a denial. You don't want there to be multiple denials. Okay. And so, we're the only ones who can tell you how to do it right from the very first time, how you can get that 30-second approval. Because guess what? A 30-second approval is not based on luck. You may have people say, oh, yeah, I was approved after two questions. That is based on luck. You are basing it on the visa officer being in a good mood, hopefully not wanting to deal with your case and just going ahead and approving your visa. But guess what? That is like not a good way to do it. I know I would be very stressed out if I was just going, based on luck. Okay, like let's hope the visa officer is in a good mood. Let's be intentional about US visa interview success because the risk is so high and you don't want to be, one out of the three people that gets denied a visa and stuck in administrative processing for months while your life is on hold while you try to figure out what you're going to do. Then you're going to spend more money trying to figure it out. You're going to have a more difficult time on your second visa interview than your first. And there is no guarantee that you'll actually get your visa approved ever again because they're already suspicious of your case. So, again, do yourself a favor, book a consultation with an expert, like one of our experts at Argo Visa. You don't have to use Argo Visa. You can use somebody else if you trust them that they're an ex visa officer. But Argo Visa is the largest company of former consular officers in the world. We vet all of our officers. We know that they are truly former State Department employees. And so, with us, you know that you are working with an officer who has been properly trained, who has the credentials. And yeah, so again, check out our website, Argo. We have a link actually, I think, down below. So click on that link so you can find out more about us and what we do and why we're the first company of former consular officers in the world and the largest company. So you know that you can trust in our service. All right. So sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I think it's so important for people who have been denied visas to know that before you go in for your next interview, please book a consultation because otherwise you're going to get the same result. You're going to get denied again. And now instead of one denial, you'll have two denials on your record. You really want to keep that record clean. No denials, no problems, no visa revocations, nothing, because that will forever hinder your ability to travel to the United States. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful to somebody. Um, okay, Adama asked, hi, Mandy. I have an F1 visa interview next week, but I have only been accepted to one community college and I'm waiting for admission to two universities. How should I address this when asked how many schools? So I think, Adama, the real question is which school you plan to attend. If you're planning to attend the community college, then go ahead with your visa interview. If you're hoping that you will get accepted into a better university, then maybe it would be a good idea to delay your interview until you get that acceptance to the other university. Because if you're going in to apply for a community college process, just so you know, it is tougher for you to get your visa approved with a community college I-20. And the reason is because the standards for admissions at a community college is so much lower than at a US university, a four-year university or a better school. And so that is why visa officers take it upon themselves to do a tougher interview. They're going to ask you more questions. They're really going to drill you on your community college. And in this case, when they say how many schools did you apply to, I think you can go ahead and say that you've applied to three schools, because you have applied to three schools. That's the honest answer. But just keep that in mind. If you're going to community college, you'll want to make sure you're extra prepared. Community college students definitely have a harder time at visa interviews. I used to see this when I was a visa officer overseas. And so you don't want to risk it. You want to make sure you do things right the first time. So, feel free to work with an expert at Argo. We would love to help you with this process. Okay. Okay. So Jason asked, I'm in my second year as a psychiatric nursing student in my country, and could I apply for a tourist visa even though my studies are actually 4 years in my country? That's a great question. And yes, you can apply for a tourist visa. However, keep in mind that because you're a student and you probably don't have very much income as a student, the visa officer will probably ask you a lot about your ties and what do you plan to do after you graduate. So just be prepared for those questions. Okay. So, okay, so Shravan asked, can you please tell me how to answer why this university, why this course, why didn't you join, or why didn't you have a job after your bachelor's degree? Why the United States? And what does your father do? Okay, so those are a lot of questions, Shravan. What I will say is when the visa officer asks you these questions, they're really trying to get to know you and understand your motivations for why you're going to the United States. Okay, so I would dig down deep to figure out exactly, why, like, honestly, why the US? You could probably go to Canada and Australia. Like, what makes the US special to you? And so, while I would recommend that you answer all of these questions truthfully and only you know the answers to these questions, there is some nuance to the process. How do you answer it in a way that the visa officer will listen and take the time to actually pay attention to your case? And that is what an Argo consultation is for. I wish I could tell you right now exactly why to say this university, why this course, but as you can see, there's a lot of details in there that I don't know the answers to, and I wouldn't be able to answer those questions without knowing more about your case. What university did you choose? What course did you choose? Why did you choose those courses? How can we frame that situation appropriately for the visa officer so that they'll listen to you? Why the United States? What does your father do? How can you answer those questions without really annoying the visa officer or having them cut you off or deciding, hey, like, you know what, I have enough information. I'm just going to deny this visa because I don't really see that this person knows their own situation very well. So that is what you do not want to happen and why expert visa interview preparation is so important. Okay. So Raju says, I got refused a visa last July, an F1 visa. The visa officer had suggested to come with additional scholarships. Um, will going with a university that has a lower cost of something than the previous university, will it make sense in getting my visa approved on my next attempt? Okay, I love this question. So, Raju and everyone out there who has been denied a visa on an F1, the first mistake that I see students make in this situation is to immediately apply for a different university. They think, okay, if I just apply to a different university that maybe costs a little bit less, then I'll get approved on my next attempt. That is a huge mistake. I would not recommend that you do that. I mean, unless you're really actually seriously thinking about changing universities. Okay. So, most of the time, if a visa officer is really hung up on your funding, on your scholarship, on how you're able to pay for it, what do your parents do, it's really, really important that you are convincing in your discussions of how you can afford tuition and what your plan is. Okay. That's not going to change just because you change schools. So, whatever you did in your first interview was not effective. It just wasn't a good, you did not prepare for your visa interview. And that's why they had doubts. And so that's why they're saying, hey, come with additional funding, come with more scholarships, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, what I would recommend for people in this decision, in this situation, is if you've ever been denied a visa before, if you haven't been convinced by now to do expert visa interview preparation before your very first interview, you have to do it after you have been denied once because clearly what you were doing before is already not working. So, this is when it's really time to bring in an expert. Better to bring us in before you get a denial at all because we can tell you how to do it right the first time and then you can just be on your merry way and worry about setting your goals in the US and reaching those goals. But if you've been denied, most definitely come to us so we can figure out why you were denied. What did you say during that funding question? We'll help you figure out, like, okay, how do you talk about your parents' work? What is the best way to, talk about their finances so that the visa officer is convinced that you have proper funding? Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. Uh, Isoza asked, oh, actually, it's just saying my interview is next week. All right, good luck to you. I hope you are prepared and you're ready to go in uh, absolutely confident. And if you need help, Isoza, feel free to book a Argo consultation. Click on the link below. Okay, so Rehu from Thailand says, I got a fresh passport. Will that make sense? And will that, I'm guessing what you're asking is, will that cause me to get my visa rejected? Now, if you're bringing in a new passport, you just got a new passport and you're applying for a visa, I would highly recommend that you bring in your all of your previous passports as well, because when you have a new passport, the visa officer is going to flip it open and not be able to see whether or not you have traveled before. And prior travel for someone going to the United States is still very important. They like to see all the places you've been to before. They like to see that the US is not your first trip, right? So they're not going to see that from your new passport. So make sure you bring your old passports along with you. Okay. Vaughn asked, does the visa officer check and compare the old and new GS 160? And the answer is yes, sometimes they do. Not all the time, but sometimes they do. So you want to make sure that for all of your DS 160 applications that your answers are consistent. You know, your new visa application isn't completely different than your old visa application because we do have access, the visa officer does have access to that on the systems and they can compare. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so Shriti asked a great question. How do I answer the question, how many schools have I applied to if I have only applied for one university? So sometimes it's a good thing that you've only applied to one university. Maybe this school is very special to you and there are very good reasons why you want to go there. Those are the things that you want to mention to the visa officer. Yes, you've only applied to one school, but this is why it is so important that you get into the school. You're so excited about starting it, and why this school versus all the others. This is something that we can work through with you, Shriti. If you want to do a consultation with us, we can walk through your reasoning and how best to talk to the visa officer to make sure that they understand why you only selected one school. Okay, so, okay, Matab asked from Bangladesh, I was refused an F1 visa twice. Is it possible to get the visa the third time? And I was refused for an ESL program. If I apply for an undergraduate program, will it be possible to get the visa? So, some great questions in there. Let's dig deep. So, first of all, if you have been denied your visa twice, yes, it is still possible to get approved your third visa. I have actually approved visas for people who have been denied 7 or 8 times. So it's always possible, but it just means that it's going to be more difficult than someone applying for the very first time. So, Matab, again, like I said before, if you've been denied a visa, please work with an expert so we can help you figure out exactly why you were denied so that we can focus on those issues going into your next interview to give you the best chance of success. Okay, so Matab was refused under the ESL program. So, like community colleges, ESL programs have tougher interviews with visa officers because, again, the admission standards for ESL programs is very low. Okay, so you're going to have a tougher interview. There's going to be more questions for you. And Matab says, if I apply to an undergraduate program, will it be possible to get the visa? What I would like everybody to do is to take a step back and not only look at the specific issue about, oh, ESL versus undergraduate program, community college versus 4 year university. I want you to take a step back and look at your overall big plans for your studies. Is it because you're doing community college and then you're doing a 2+2 program? Are you studying ESL first and then you're going to use the better English to transition into a better program? So you need to look at your entire situation and figure out how to properly frame it for the visa officer because it's never about, hey, is it ESL versus undergraduate program? Is it community college versus 4 year university? If you change those things, it's still not going to get your visa approved because you haven't looked at the big picture to make serious plans for your studies in the US. And that is what we will help you do with an Argo consultation. Okay. Okay, so Faith says, I just got admitted for spring semester in 2023. Congratulations. But I'm having trouble getting a good interview date in Lagos. What can I do? Okay, so once you get so first thing you need to do is book that appointment, even if it is after your program start date. Because once you book your appointment, then you can apply for an expedited appointment. And what you should say in the expedite request is that your visa interview is actually after your program start date. Is there any way that you can expedite the appointment so that it's before your program actually starts? That usually, has a really good outcome. So I wish you the best of luck. Try that and let us know if it worked. We love hearing from you. So always feel free to drop messages on our YouTube channel under our videos and let us know if our advice and tips helped you. Okay, so she what asked, can you tell us the exact answer for the question, why did you choose this university? So, as you can imagine, the answer to that question is different for every single one of you. Okay, I see that there's 145 of you up here. There's probably 145 different answers for why did you choose this university, because everybody is different. You're applying to different schools, you have different goals in the US. So, what we would do in an Argo consultation, if I were working with you, I would want to know all about your life. You know, what was it like growing up? What made you interested in studying abroad? Why this major? Who's supporting you? And then helping you come up with a genuine and authentic response that's true to who you are. And that's going to be different than anybody else's answer because it is real, it's true. And the visa officer is going to be able to tell that. And how visa officers can tell that is because, okay, for example, when I worked for 7 years with the State Department, I made decisions on over 100,000 visa interviews. And I can tell when someone is lying to me or not being honest or being, not genuine. I can tell that within, I don't know, like 5 seconds. And so when you are being genuine, when you are able to take all of the great things out of your life and frame it properly for the visa officer, that is going to be a totally different interview. And so, Faith, sorry, that's not Faith, it's she what, for the answer, why did you choose this university? You and I are going to have to work together to find that out because I need to know more about you to know what the right response would be for you. Okay. Okay. So, so Saif asked, can the status change from approved to refused? Yes, that can happen sometimes. And unfortunately, I have seen it happen, when I was a visa officer. So someone can tell you, the visa officer can tell you, like, hey, your visa is approved. And guess what? Your visa will get denied later. Why does that happen? Well, one of the reasons is because sometimes the visa officer will find out more information about you after the visa interview. So they approve your visa, but something comes back in our government systems that says, hey, this person was actually previously arrested, or hey, this person actually used a different identity to apply for a visa before, and it's this person, and it's a person that you just approved a visa to. And the visa officer is going to say, oh my gosh, like, what did I do? What was I thinking approving this person for a visa? I'm going to pull this visa application and I'm going to deny it. And that is why sometimes occasionally you will get a visa approved and then a visa denial. So again, you know, this is unlikely to happen if you do a consultation with Argo because we really do go through your whole history. We want to know everything about you so we can figure out what your risks are and how can we minimize those risks, right? So, but when you're not prepared and you're trying to keep information from the visa officer, yes, this can sometimes happen where your approved visa will then get denied. Okay, so Marco asked for my H-2B visa, are my parents' income and properties a valid document to bring with me, or is this only for student type of visa? Marco, I think it's always a good idea to bring those documents. You might not show that to the visa officer, they might not ask to see it, but at the very least, if it comes up in conversation and you have an opportunity to show it, you have it. I think it's always better to bring everything, but not to hand anything to the visa officer until you answer their questions and they ask to see something. Okay. So Heights asked, what is okay, so how can I answer the question, why the US and why only the US, and if there is a difference? No, I think that question is basically the same. The visa officer is just trying to find out why you chose the US to study in, why not some other country. So you better have a good reason, and hopefully you do. What I would do in a session an Argo session with you is really understand your motivations, what caused you to think about the US, and then we can frame that answer nicely for the visa officers so that they'll understand you. Okay, Parbot asked, I am planning for a master's in computer science and I have a 40% scholarship. Congratulations, that's great. Is 40% a decent scholarship? So there's a few questions I would have, Parbat, and one of them is how much is your total tuition? If it's a lot, then in addition to the 40% scholarship, you're going to want to explain how you plan to pay for the other 60%. And it has to be, a truthful reason and it has to make sense to the visa officer. Okay. Um, okay, so Omar asked, should I do an interview in my country of birth or in my country of citizenship? That is a great question. You can actually apply anywhere in the world. However, I would say the country where you currently live and probably have citizenship is the best bet for where you should apply. Okay, so Music Worldwide asked, hi, my English is poor. How can I get my crew visa? I'm supposed to go work on a cruise ship. Congratulations. So, Music Worldwide, my question for you is if your English is poor, are you able to work on a cruise ship properly? Are you working where you're facing the customers all the time and talking to all the customers. If that's the case, then maybe you would need to improve your English before the visa interview because the visa officer is going to want to know, well, how can you talk to customers from English-speaking countries if you don't really speak English well, right? However, if you're working internally, maybe you are, someone who is working in engineering or doing something where you're not really facing the customers, then that might make more sense. And so you'll want to properly explain that at your visa interview. Okay. So let's see. Let's see if we have any other good questions. Okay, so Eli Music Boss asked, will changing my DS-160 application form affect my visa approval? I think it depends what exactly it is you changed, okay? But I think it is a good idea if something is not accurate on your DS-160 form, you definitely want to correct it and resubmit it again. And I would even say print out the new application with the changed information and bring it to your visa interview. I think it's a good idea that you are bringing that to the attention of the visa officer instead of hoping that they don't notice. Okay. Oh, okay. So someone asked, I was refused 20 years ago when the DS-160 did not exist. Should I still state the refusal in my current DS-160? So I would definitely state it because you have been refused before, but most likely that's not going to affect um, your visa application too much because your refusal was over 20 years ago, and that is a long time ago, and a lot has changed. Okay, so so Ishmael Justice, I guess Big J, hi Big J, says, I have been rejected a visa. I applied for a bachelor's degree and I want to fill out a new DS-160 form. Will the consular officer have all the information from the first DS-160 that led to my rejection? Yes, they will have access to that. They will be able to see it. And it's possible that they will pull it up at your next interview. So make sure that your answers are consistent. Okay, so Lucy asked a great question. If my visa was rejected due to my travel history, how can I overcome that in my next interview? So, I want to bring this to everybody's attention. A lot of times, you might think that your visa was refused for one reason, but guess what? That's probably not the reason why your visa was actually denied. So I would say that, Lucy, it's probably not rejected due to travel history. Okay. So, what a visa officer does when they are making this decision is they're looking at the totality of your circumstances and considering every single thing. So, there might be multiple factors that led to your denial. And what I would love to do is sit down with you in an Argo consultation and figure out exactly what the questions were, what your answers were, what your life history is all about, and figure out how we can tackle the next visa interview for success. Okay. Because I can guarantee you that it's probably not because of your travel history. Okay, so Rose asked, I won the DV lottery in 2021, but it's expired and now I'm trying to get one. I'm trying for my third student visa interview. Is there any advice you can give on my application? So, Rose, one thing that you'll want to be prepared to answer is why you applied for an immigrant visa. An immigrant visa allows you to permanently live in the US legally. And I think it's great that you applied for the DV lottery. However, that can affect other types of temporary visas, like your student visa application. Because for student visa applications, your intent to be in the US should be temporary, not to live permanently in the US. And if you have it on your record that you won the DV lottery and they'll be able to see that in the system, you'll want to explain to them, why, um, you know, why is it that you tried for the DV lottery? Why did you not go through with it? That may be a really good answer for why you're applying for a student visa now. So again, without more information, it's difficult to help you, but I would love to do a session with you and just really understand what happened there so that you can be successful at your next visa interview. Okay, so okay, Kalajula asked, I'm applying for an MBA, but I have two kids. One is 4 years old and the second is 1.5 years old. Do you think I can apply with both or one or none? Which do I stand a better chance to increase having a visa? So, Kalajula, I would recommend that you first apply on your own as an F1 student. And if you get your visa approved, then you can submit your kids' visa applications probably through Dropbox because, under 14, your kids don't need a visa interview. However, the key is to be honest at your visa interview if you're bringing your kids with you. Okay. So I wouldn't, it's not really important if you, bring both of them or just bring one of them or none of them. I think it's best to just decide what you want to do and be honest about it. Okay. Okay, so let's see. AA says I was denied 3 times already. If I apply using a different passport from a different country and use another email address, will you still see the previous refusals? Yes, we will still see the previous refusals because your fingerprints have been taken. We have your photo on record. So don't try, trying to use a different identity to apply because that's when we catch you and you can actually get a ban to the United States because of that. Okay, so Kajo Karu asked, do you remember having approved any type of visa after a B1, B2 visa cancellation and withdrawal of application? Yeah, it's possible. I think it will really depend on the reason for the B1, B2 visa cancellation. If it's not a big reason, yeah, you can probably apply again. You just want to make sure that you're going to be prepared because you're going to face a tough visa interview. But sometimes if it's really serious, it might affect it. So this is where an Argo consultation will really come in handy. Okay, so Saranya asked, my husband is in the US on an H1 visa, and I was also in the US for 5 years, but my visa got refused. Okay, so this is where I would really need a lot more information to understand why your visa is getting refused. Usually, when you've been to the US before, it's a really good sign. So you should be easily getting your visa approved. So something must have happened to cause your visa to get denied. And if you want to get your visa approved again, you should definitely book a session with us so we can help you understand what the problem is and how we can overcome it. Okay. So let's see. All right, guys, I'm trying to find some questions from new people just because, we want to give everybody a chance to answer questions. I have 3 more minutes, so I'm going to take a few more questions. So Jonathan asked, is it difficult to get an F1 visa in comparison to a B1, B2? Those are just two completely different types of visas because you have different motivations for going. I wouldn't say one is easier than the other. It really depends on your purpose of travel. So, pick one, figure out, which one you want more, and then, try to prepare for your interview. Um, Harry asked, is it a red flag if your entire cost of attendance is funded with a student loan? Yes, it is absolutely a red flag. If you're someone who used student loans to, pay for tuition, you'll want to be more prepared for the visa interview because that will be a red flag because it basically tells the visa officer that you weren't able to afford the tuition on your own and you needed to take out a loan. And they'll be very interested to know how you plan on paying that loan back. Okay. So Olu Wasson says, I'm in the US on an F1 as a PhD, and my wife and child was denied their F2. Okay, so that's interesting because if you're in the US on a PhD, um, you know, that's a very, prestigious degree. And usually family members should actually have an easier time. I would think that something happened in your time in the US that would cause your wife and kids to get denied. So again, book a consultation with us and we can figure out exactly what's causing that and how to overcome it. Okay. So Huzaif asked, what does it mean to change your circumstances when an applicant has relevant course, top-notch university, enough funds, and relevant experience? Okay, so when the visa officer says that you're denied a visa and you got to wait until your circumstances have changed, I'm going to give you guys a big secret. You need to say at your next visa interview that your circumstances have changed, okay? But you need to be honest. How have they changed? And you need to follow up with that because if you say, no, your situation has not changed, you're basically giving them the ability to deny your visa outright without even considering your case, okay? So always say, yes, your circumstances have changed and figure out what has changed and be honest about that. Okay, last couple of questions. Can an American citizen be my sponsor for an F1 visa? They can, but it could complicate the situation. We would want to know what is your relationship? Why would they want to sponsor you? Does the relationship make sense? Okay, so definitely a good situation for preparation with an expert. Okay, so Rahul says, I want to apply for my parents for their US visa for my graduation, but they can't speak English or the local language, and they know the town language only. What can you do? Okay, so the one thing you can do is contact the embassy or consulate and explain the situation and see if they can bring a translator with them, someone who can translate from the local town language to English. And sometimes they would say yes because they do want to understand your parents' situation and consider whether or not they would be eligible for a visa. Okay, guys, so it is now 10 a.m. Pacific time. So we've had, a good hour of Q&A, and I hope my answers have been helpful to all of you. We do these sessions pretty regularly. We try to do them at least once every month. So if you didn't get your questions answered this time, try to come to the next session, or better yet, just book a consultation with an ex visa officer. Because guess what, guys? Most of these questions that you're asking, just me answering this question is not going to be helpful to your situation. You need somebody to fully evaluate your case, decide what the problems are, why your visa is getting denied, or how you can be prepared before your first interview, and give you a great strategy that will help make sure that you're successful. Because guess what? Your goals in the United States are too important and it is too risky of a process for you not to have expert help. Okay. You don't have to do it on your own anymore. We have expert standing by, ready to help you. We're a company of 22 former consular officers. We have made decisions on over 1 million visa applications, and we can help you be successful at your US visa interview process. Okay. So there is a link under this video, and check it out. It's going to lead you to our website, which will tell you more about us. And I thank you guys so much for participating. You have also given me some really good ideas for future videos to make. Thanks again for attending this session, and I look forward to seeing you on our Argo platform, helping you prepare for your visa interview. All right. Have a great day. Happy holidays.